Hi everyone, it's Tonya Gibbs, and today I want to share with you a process video creating a mixed media tag. Products and some more information will be listed in the blog link that is in the description box below. I'm starting out with my base as a Tim Holtz number 10 tag. This is from the tag and bookplate die. I cut it out of thick chipboard, and then I also cut it out of manila cardstock. Then I painted it with gesso, and I stamped a music note stamp over the top. Now this tag has been in my stash for quite a while as is. That's why you don't see me create it in the process video. I like to use up my scraps and experiment and things like that, so when I'm making tags. So I use what I have just laying around. So I'll do the best I can to link up the products down below, but most of this stuff is probably product that is no longer available. So I'm going to encourage you as I work through this tag to go into your stash and see what you have that would be comparable if you decide to duplicate this technique. These are rub-ons that are ancient, and they're so old that you can tell they're crackling when I put them on. They're not even transferring well. I used all of the A's, R's, and T's in the set to make the word art. Truthfully, it is going to get covered up, but these big chunky letters offer some texture to my background. Now I'm using some drywall tape, and this is just a piece off the roll that was all trashed and just really messed up where I ripped it. So I'm cutting it into finer strips, and I'm going to adhere this around on my tag. It's going to offer a lot of texture as well, and it's super sticky, so you don't need any extra adhesive to put it down. But notice that I am crossing it over and overlapping in certain areas. I love to do these tags when I want to experiment with techniques. I love to share them in racks and things like that. I know several people who I've sent racks to have been getting these, so they're a fun way to give you a piece of my art. This is a piece of the twill tape from Prima, and I've had this again in my stash for a while. So it's nice to use some of these products that I've long forgotten about. You know, you get all these new products in your room and you just forget about the old stuff. So it's nice to use up those supplies every now and then. Confessions, there is a bucket on my desk that will make a debut later in the video. That bucket is full of what I call one-hit wonders. It's where I have opened up a package and maybe not used the whole package of something and it's just thrown in the bucket, or it's little scraps of paper, little punched pieces, die cuts, that kind of thing. So metal pieces, and I get lazy and I don't want to put it away, so I throw it in this bucket. So every now and then the bucket needs to be thinned out and gone through, so that's what I do. I sit down and make tags. This little tag was part of the bucket. That's why you'll see things that are somewhat already completed, because they're things I started at one point and never did anything with. Like this tag was tea-dyed and broke in half. I was going to use it on a card and it ended up in the bucket for whatever reason. Now I'm using the Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft gel medium to just seal over the top of those rub-ons. Like I said, they're old, so I don't want them to pull up, and it does kind of help to anchor everything down and make sure all things are glued and they have a nice surface over the top. The gel medium acts as a prep surface too for me to be able to you know, use a baby wipe to remove any mediums if I don't like them. Now I'm just taking some loose pearls, different sizes. There's 2 or 3 different sizes in this bucket. And I'm using the glass bead glitter gel from Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft. It also has the little micro beads in it as well as glitter. And I'm mixing the paste up with those pearls. And the medium that is used for the glass bead glitter gel is also like an adhesive, so these are going to stick really nicely to my project. Now it's going on white and creamy, but it will dry clear, so you know, some of the color that you're seeing here is going to disappear as this starts to dry. Now, one thing about the glass bead glitter gel is I like to leave it to the side and let it dry naturally on its own. You will notice that I speed up the process a little bit with the heat tool, but I am going to be very cautious of that because the gel does like to blister. Now that is a great texture effect, but it may not be the effect you're after, so just be aware of that. I'm just using a popsicle stick here to work all of that down and find placement of where I want things to land. You can tell when the glass bead glitter gel starts to dry. You can really see the glitter in it. Now these are a couple of pieces of metal that were on my desk, and also some little Prima flowers that were on my desk. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the gel medium to adhere those to the tag. And I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with this just yet, but I am, like I said, just creative play as if this were a journal page. Now I'm putting this little butterfly down. He's just one in the scrap pile. He will be removed later. I found a better idea for him. Here's another little metal piece that was in the bucket that I'm going to layer down and place the flower on top of. And of course I'm just making sure all of my pearls are in the right spot because some of them are quite chunky. And now these are some leaves that were in the pile, and these leaves I think have been in this pile for quite a while, so it's nice to use them up and get rid of them. So I'm just placing them around. They're various Prima leaves. The blue flowers are also a Prima flower. And again, these are like one-hit wonders. These were packages that were opened up that had a bunch of flowers in them, and this is just a few that I had left over. And notice my leaves don't match, but that doesn't matter. I think once it all comes together, it'll be fine. Now I'm going to use some gesso from Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft, and I'm just going to kind of hit some of these areas and knock some things backwards. Just kind of sending it to the background by putting the gel medium over the top of it and diffusing the color quite a bit. You can see on that R a little where the glass bead glitter gel is starting to dry clear, and you can really see that nice blue-green glitter shining through. So once everything is painted up, then I'm going to just dry brush a little bit more color around and evaluate what I want to do next. So I found this Adirondack. This is the Butterscotch Archival ink, and this is the re-inker bottle, and I'm just going to spritz some of that on there. And the bottle that you see me using right there is water. Since these inks can be mixed with water, it does help them to just sort of blend out and diffuse a little more. And I'm just going into where my shadows would be on my tag to add that butterscotch color there. And I'm trying to stay clear of my flowers. I'm not being hugely successful, but again, that's part of mixed media, and it's okay. So once I did that coloring to the bottom, I did it also in a small corner at the top. This is the Lindy Stamp Gang. This is the Tiffany's Blue, and I was spritzing it on and then decided I wanted a little more control, so decided to paint it on with a paintbrush instead. Notice the leaf stuck to my paintbrush there. It will get removed in a minute. So I'm just splattering some of that color around, just being hugely generous with it. This particular glimmer is a soft baby blue, but it also has a pearlescent blue and a kind of goldish tone to it. And again, that's the Tiffany's Blue from Lindy Stamp Gang. Now I've added a little more of that butterscotch there on my mat, and I've spritzed it with a little bit of alcohol, and that's going to help it to dry a little bit faster. And I'm adding it to the center of my flowers and just kind of blotting it around where some of the overspray from the blue fell onto my tag. My idea here was to go for a nice patinaed look, and that's why I'm using a lot of the blues and the yellows together, because when they come together they're obviously going to make green, but standing alone they make a great color palette too. So now I've taken some of the jet black Stays On re-inker, and I've added it to a little piece of recycled packaging and spritzed it with a little bit of alcohol, and now I'm splattering it around on my tag to just give some splatters. The alcohol helps that Stays On to liquefy a little easier, and the alcohol will also help it to dry really fast. So once I'm satisfied with that, I tip it up and let it drip down just a little bit. And I've decided that I needed a little more of the blue there on the flowers, so I'm just using the tip of that. Now I'm taking a little nylon butterfly that has been in my stash for years, and he's actually been living in that bucket on my desk for quite a while, and I've painted him with that stays on, so he's black. And I am going to adhere him to my flower cluster there in the center. I removed the other butterfly that I had placed earlier. He just wasn't big enough and seemed to be lost. This is the Viva Precious Metal paint. It's an epoxy type paint and it's gold, and I'm touching all of the high points of my pearls as well as my flowers. This is just going to give them a little extra sparkle and really make them stand up and take notice. You'll notice too when I lift this tag that this little touches of gold just kind of helps to define the highlights of all the elements on my tag. This is one of the Tim Holtz birds from his Ideology line, and I'm using my stays on to give it a little bit of color, and then I'm also going to use a little bit of that Viva to just add again the gold touches to his wings and his highlighted areas. And I'm using a little bit of epoxy glue there, the E6000, to adhere him to the page. I could have used matte medium or the gel medium, but I wanted it to dry a little bit faster. And here I'm just taking that sponge and just adding a little bit of black around all of my edges to just kind of finish out the sides of my tag a little bit and give it a nice distressed look, aged look. Now, one thing I don't show in the video is that once this tag was complete, I did paint the back of it with some black gesso. Now, I've found this little piece of jewelry. I'm not even sure who makes it, but it was in my stash, and I want to hang it on my tag, but I needed it to match the elements that were there. So I'm going to use that archival ink and as well as the black stays on ink to color it up. It was silver, and the silver just wasn't working for me, so I wanted it to have more of the brown undertone with the black on top. So I'm just going to continue to blot these two colors together until I get the color I like. Then I'm going to come back with some of that gold and add that in there too. So all three of my ink colors will be represented here on this one piece of jewelry. And I love that it's a flower with a tassel that hangs because I want to hang it from my tag. I'm using a garment, a pin to hang that on my tag there. So I love to have dangles hanging from my tags. And this piece of jewelry was actually in the clearance section of one of the hobby stores. So now I've spritzed some of the colors down on my mat. I'm using some alcohol to mix it all together, and I'm also using that Lindy Stamp Gang Tiffany blue with the butterscotch, and I'm just blotting it up onto that piece of seam binding scrap that was in the pile. And now to blot up all the color off my desk, because this would make a gorgeous tag of another type, I blotted it up with some scrap paper, and I'll use it later to cut out another tag. So I decided that I also wanted to use this little piece of trim that was in my stash, so I'm adding the blue to it as well, and it's also got a lot of the yellow amber color that's being picked up off my mat. I want to make sure everything is really good and dry, all the seam binding. It just kind of ties a little easier when it's dry. Excuse me. I'm going to add that little piece of pleated trim there at the bottom. It just kind of helps to finish off the tag a little bit. And now I'm going to tie my bow at the top, but before I do that, I want to set one of these eyelets. These are from We Are Memory Keepers, and it's the large eyelets, and I'm going to use my Crop-A-Dile to set that. It just gives a really nice finished look to that hole that's at the top. I like the look of the eyelets. So then I'm going to go ahead and add my seam binding that I colored up. And before I finish it off, I'm going to add one of these little pearl drop charms. I think these came from Tim Holtz or Meyer Road, one or the other. And I am going to tie off that at the top with a nice little bow. It's just going to finish it off and bring all those colors together, and then trim off the tails of my tie so that it doesn't interfere too much with what's going on down at the bottom. And my tag is nearly complete. I'm looking at it and evaluating what I want to do next. I found this piece of transparency that was from Rana Ferreira. I had taken a class and it's been in the pile for a while, and I used the patina alcohol ink on the back of it so you could really see it. And I love the tag because it says, let go of self-criticism, look at it from a different angle and be happy. So here are some close-ups of the finished tag so that you can see all of the wonderful details. I hope you've enjoyed this production, and as always, don't forget to leave me a comment, thumbs up, and share this with a friend if you've enjoyed it. I will put a link to all of the products down below in an accompanying blog post. If I'm not sure of the product, I will leave you a generic title for it. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today.